Hey everybody, welcome to Highly Unlikely with Josh and Jenaye. We're so glad that you're here today. We have a great, actually, I think we're going to have a part 1 and part 2 coming up these next couple weeks on a really important topic that I'm not the expert on, so I'm just going to be really quiet this whole time. But Jenaye, why don't you introduce our guest today?
Yeah, we have Doug and Vicki Graham with us, and we're not going to waste, it's not a waste of time, but the context matters, which is so fun, where Doug and Vicki led Evangel from, was it 2005 to 2014?
Yep.
And Josh worked and served under their leadership. And so it's just so fun to have you guys back. They're here for the Legacy Makers Banquet. And they are seasoned, wise voices on this topic of parenting, and even have a specific, would you call it curriculum program?
Yes.
Teaching?
Yes.
Vertical parenting. And why don't you guys tell listeners just a little bit about yourselves, your family, and then we'll dive in.
Well, we love being back in Bismarck, here at Evangel, and what has happened in the years after our leaving, and the explosion of growth and reaching more and more people, and not just here in Bismarck and Mandan region, but the campus expansions and the vision for the world. And that's just exciting. So we're thrilled to be back, to be with you. We love both of you. So proud of how God's used your lives to lead this great church and to really raise up an army of young ministers, people that are serving in the local church, in the ministry. It's just very, very exciting. And to talk about parenting, that's one of our hotspots. We love it.
Yeah.
I'll just tell you a snippet of how vertical parenting started. It actually started here at Evangel, and we were reaching so many new people that were new to Christianity, new to the Bible, and they really didn't understand the biblical worldview and how to live it out in their home. And it just became more and more evident. And the Lord spoke to me one day, cleaning a house, just saying, you can do that. You can share with these young moms what it is, what it looks like to have a biblical worldview in raising their kids. And so it was a word from the Lord, and I just sat down and began writing. And I think the first time I did it, it was maybe 8 weeks, and then we kind of honed it down into 6 weeks. And then eventually Doug taught it with me, and so we've added kind of his thoughts and viewpoints, but that's how it started. So
That's amazing.
So how do you become good in this area? I mean, it's kind of, you can sit and listen to somebody say that, and it's like, well, what qualifies you? Is it that you read a lot? Is it that you were raised really well? Is it that God spoke to you specifically about this area? Because I know people can step into like parenting, and it can feel so huge. But how did you feel? How did you come to feel equipped?
I think both Vicki and I would tell you we were raised in really good homes. Our parents did really good work.
Yeah.
And not every parent today has that backdrop to lean on. And though our parents were excellent in so many areas, there were some areas of their parenting that, and I think in my own life, I think of my dad's example, which was really, really positive. But there were some aspects of the father-son connection that I said to myself, I want to take it to another level. And recognizing that even as, we had 3 boys and then our youngest is a girl. But as I was, looking at these little boys being raised, and I said, I want to do something a little different. I want to be a little more intentional in the emotional connection with these boys. So that as they grow and they get to adulthood, the goal, the end in mind is that we'd have this beautiful, not just a father-son, but a like friendship relationship, and but it's taking what our parents did good and continuing that, and then kind of improving in some areas where there were some blind spots in our folks. So.
And we didn't have all the answers. I mean, you have your first child and you quickly learn, I know nothing.
Yeah.
Even though you may have had great examples, because every child is unique. Every child is different.
Yeah.
There's a different set of circumstances that surround each child. Our first child was adopted, so that brings in a whole lot of other things that we had to learn how to navigate. And there wasn't a whole lot of information back then when we adopted our son, like there is now about bonding and connecting and all of those things. And I really relied on the Holy Spirit, to be honest. There were times where I was like, God, I don't know how to handle this situation with this particular child. I know that we need to do something, but I'm not sure, And you try different things, and sometimes it backfires on you, and it makes the situation worse instead of better. And it's like, God, you're my teacher, and you are the one that knows all things. You created this child. You need to give me the insight, the creativity, the ability to parent this child. And I cannot tell you how many times the Lord answered that prayer over and over and over again, where he gave me an idea or a thought, and I knew it wasn't in my own head, that he gave that to me. The other thing is we were constant learners. I mean, we read parenting books. We have an enormous library on parenting. And, why would you do that? I think if you read a book and you get 3 golden nuggets out of that one book, that book was worth the read.
Yeah.
And that is what happened many times. I would read a book and it's like, well, I don't really agree with that, or that wouldn't necessarily work with my child. Oh, there's I'm going to try that. I think that actually might work. And so just taking those golden nuggets of learning throughout the years actually made a big difference too. So as parents, we don't want to stick our head in the sand and just kind of go along with whatever the day brings. No, we want to be intentional about our parenting. So
Yeah.
What is so we're raising these kids, and it can be, the goal is keep them alive, Pretty soon the goal becomes get them out of the house.
What is the joke we say? We take them from uncivilized humans to civilized.
That's
the goal. But
and I think a lot of people don't even ask that question of what am I really trying to accomplish here? Or having a greater vision than just getting through the next day, Groundhog's Day every day.
Yeah.
But what is the aim of parenting, and where do people miss it?
Our curriculum is entitled Vertical Parenting. Parenting our children with the view of heaven. Up to God. God help us in raising your kids so that they're directionally living a life that's moving them closer and closer to heaven, to the kingdom of God. But the subtitle is Begin with the End in Mind.
Yeah.
And so there has to be this forethought, even before you get married and you want to have kids. You want to, you're thinking about the kind of mother you want to be, or the kind of father you want to be. You're thinking about how your kids want to end up, and it's always about character. It's always about who are they on the inside, and it's not at all about as pastors. It was never about we really would be so happy if all of our kids went into the ministry, and it was that was never even on our radar. It was all about we want our kids to love Jesus. Yeah. And it just so happens that they serve in vocational ministry. But the idea is, parenting really is meant to be a discipleship experience for the children. So there has to be this awareness of basic Christian theology as a mom and dad. If you're a new believer, you want to get into heart and soul and into the different processes you have here at Evangel to anchor people that maybe didn't have a Christian upbringing. But the idea is that parents are the most effective disciplers of the children, and the children's pastors and the ministries are just supplements to what is the role of parents. And so the idea is we want to raise our kids so they love Jesus with all their heart, and then they pass it on to their children, and then you've got that generational God's blessing upon generation after generation.
Right.
But the responsibility in the here and now is these little human beings that have to be trained in righteousness.
Yeah.
We didn't say it right away, but you guys have, you said you have 4 kids, but now they're all grown, married, have children of their own. And would you say even some of these questions that we're going to go through, that when the Lord spoke to you to develop this curriculum, that now maybe you'd have just maybe a fuller answer because you've lived through the little years, the teenage years, and now they're young adults and young adults. Yeah. They're all adults, but and still in close relationship with all of them. How has the Lord helped you shape and form the answers to these questions through every season. Or maybe, does that question make sense?
Well, when I first started writing the curriculum, all of our kids were teenagers. In fact, our oldest one was in college. So we had raised somebody all the way through graduation. He sent him off to school. And it doesn't necessarily make you an expert, but it does give you experience that you can speak from. And you've got stories and you've got, illustrations of what it looked like in our home. So there were always things to draw on. I think now, in the season we are in now, and as grandparents, is we have a much fuller picture, an even greater picture, because we're on the other side of parenting. What I never realized when I was raising our kids is one day you get to live through all of the seasons of children, rearing children all over again with your grandchildren. Not that we're raising them, but we get to be in every season with our grandkids now. And it's just, it's so fulfilling and so fun to be in that season of life. And I never really thought about it when I was your guys' age, raising our kids. Like one day I get to do this all over again, but from a different perspective.
Yeah. I was going to say, would you ever consider a vertical grandparenting?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I wonder how much that would be appreciated or needed.
Yes. I think
we have thought about that.
Yeah, that definitely is needed in the world in which we live today, because a lot of grandparents are having the fortunate, unfortunate situation that they have to be a primary caregiver, either, their children divorced or a death or some dysfunctional situation where grandparents are really the primary caretakers. And it definitely, anybody who has responsibility for children, whether it be children's pastors, parents, grandparents, aunts and uncles, any advice or guidance and direction and principled focus would benefit them, because kids are our greatest raw material for the future of this planet.
Right. So, sorry, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, I want to get into the nuts and bolts a little bit, and we'll cover a couple topics, but I know there's parents who are listening going, I don't know if I'm spiritually able to lead my kids. I don't know if I'm failing. Or this fear almost. I mean, you see a lot of grown children these days cutting their adult parents off, and you're like, man, am I going to mess my kids up? Or, are they going to even stay in relationship with me? So really the question is like, where do we start? And even a parent that feels totally overwhelmed, I don't know if I'm doing anything right. Like, where do I start?
Yeah.
I think for a Christian parent, the first thing is you need to be discipled. That's the greatest thing you can do, because as you begin to grow in your faith and you become discipled, it will be easier to disciple your children. But first of all, you need to be in a group, because that's where you're going to rub shoulders in community. You're going to bounce ideas off of other people. You're going to get their viewpoints, and you're discussing the Word of God. So you're learning the Word of God, and that's really critical, because obviously you can't teach your kids the Word if you don't know it. So you really have to start there by jumping in and being discipled yourself. And then in the meantime, as you're learning and growing, simply praying with your children is just huge. At nighttime, if you're just taking a few minutes to talk about their day and to talk about some of their hurts, their pains, their frustrations, and then you bring that to God. Not that you have all the answers as a parent, but you know who does have all the answers. And you pray with them about that. And then you pray at the dinner table. And you bring God in. You start bringing God in. And that's a lot of families don't know how to bring God into the everyday conversation, but that's where you start, is with prayer.
And I will just say this, that for the parent or parents who weren't raised in church or don't have a confidence of biblical knowledge, background, all of that, don't sweat it. The key is developing the relationship and connection with your kids. And if this family happens to be having their kids in kids' church, or they're involved in some aspect of Christian education at Evangel, their church, just start asking questions to the kids about what they learned. And they're going to bring the Bible stories and the Bible truths home, and they're going to be describing it, and you're going to be learning as you go. I know that, when I came to faith as a teenager, and at the same time as my dad came to faith midlife as a middle-aged parent. Wow. And I can remember his discipleship was buying an encyclopedia of children's Bible stories, Genesis to Revelation, that he read through at a child's level. I inherited those books, and then I used those books as actual children's stories for my kids for my boys at bedtime. And so for, parents that maybe feel like they're behind they're way behind on this, let your kids and what they're learning be part of your learning and growing. And don't feel like you got to be a Bible scholar at all.
Do you think, I know I've been guilty of this, that a lot of parents can get so caught up in what they know or the parenting method or the book and maybe lose focus of the conduct and character of Jesus being the regenerate work of the Spirit in me, and my tone changing or my language changing is actually probably more powerful in the day-to-day than being able to recite the verse or teach and correct, in air quotes, the right way. Do you think sometimes we can get that backwards or emphasize the wrong thing?
Yeah, I mean, we're all familiar with the phrase, more is caught than taught. Yeah. And so we're our greatest example of what it looks like to follow Christ. And so your kids are watching you day in, day out. They're watching your attitude. They're watching your actions. They're hearing what you say all day. And they're recognizing, do you practice what you preach? In other words, what you're telling and instructing your child, do you actually live that out? Because if we're not authentic in our teaching and our instructing, that's not going to go anywhere. And so we have to live it out and be that example, because our kids are watching and they take note of everything that we say and do.
And one of the greatest ways to move the ball forward in terms of being an example of Christian growth, maturity, is when you mess up and being able to apologize, for your kids to see you apologize to your spouse, to see and have your kids hear that they're apologizing to you for, I got too angry, or I said something in a way I shouldn't have. Will you please forgive me? Role modeling that is like that. Your kids will never forget that, and then they'll model that when it's their turn to own something that they need to confess.
Right.
It's funny because our generation is really like, life is filled with parenting hacks right now. I mean, you can go on social media and all the stuff, and it's like it can actually be overwhelming, and you can feel like a failure because everybody's showing their perfect parenting hack that apparently works every time on Instagram.
And one hack contradicts the other hack, and you're like, wait.
So it's interesting, even just early on in this conversation of, hey, how do you do this? How do you do that? And you're like, grow yourself, live with integrity. Yeah. It's like, it's not these little hacks. It's like, no, just live the Christian life, I'm wondering if there's parts of the legacy now that you see in your kids that you look back and you go, yep, we intentionally planted that in their heart, or if there's things that you go, man, unintentionally, just by being watched and them catching glimpses of our life, now we see them living that out. Are there any things that come to mind, either intentional or unintentional?
Those are probably one of the greatest blessings at this stage of parenting, is watching our own kids parent their children. Right. Because we watch how they interact with their grandchildren, and there are things that we're learning from our kids that they're taking it a step further than we did in some areas, and we just kind of step back and say, wow, I love that. And then there's other things. It's like, yep, they're doing the example that we set, and that blesses our heart that they are carrying on many of the intentionalities that we shared with them. And so, whenever, one of our kids pulls one of their kids aside and they have to have a talk, because the child did something they weren't supposed to do or said something they weren't supposed to do, just the way they go about it is what we intentionally tried to do, that you really talk with your kids gently, kindly, but firmly. And we watch our kids do that and express that. And it's beautiful because that's how it's supposed to be. And so it's a great blessing to see your kids living out what you did your best to live out in front of them.
Right.
Yep.
And the nature of the kingdom is you grow in something and then it multiplies in its blessing and it multiplies in wisdom. And so it would be natural that they would take what the foundation you laid and build on it and express it, even more beautifully.
Yes. I know that's been something we've talked a lot about in parenting that gives us hope, like for our kids, where when you work so hard to allow the Lord to renew your mind and maybe the way your brain was wired as a kid, whether it was yelling or not being kind and firm. But even you just saying that, I'm like, well, the way you guys raised them even wired their brains that way. And how much easier, you doing the hard work of allowing the Lord to renew your mind. I mean, I'm talking about us where we've talked about these are the things the Lord has to definitely renew the way our mind reacts or, the world would say what your triggers are. And then your kids' brains are able to get raised and wired that way. So I just think that's so cool. Yeah. It's amazing. What helped your kids grow into having strong, lasting sibling relationships? What were kind of some of the intentional things you guys did?
Especially for those of us who have kids sitting, in car seats next to each other fighting.
Yeah, the sibling rivalry, which is a pretty common dynamic in families. We had it as well. The kids struggled from time to time, but we planted a vision inside of them by using this phrase, you are going to be best friends. Now, you don't feel like you're best friends right now, but in time, what's going to happen is you're going to realize that all four of you are best friends. So again, we were speaking it in faith,
right?
And we had to deal with, all kinds of little different conflicts, some more intense than others between, and at different ages. But again, we believed by faith that we wanted them to see each other not as combatants for attention or anything like that, but that we are going to be best friends, and we couched it with a lot of efforts to build family culture. Yeah, that as a family, and we would define our family culture by our last name. Grahams are leaders. Grahams are, as a family, we love each other. We're going to be best friends. We're, and we love Jesus. And so by building family culture, I think that helped to get these kids through the seasons where they were kind of at each other from time to time. What do you think, dear?
Yes, I was going to mention that we always attached our last name to a character quality that we would call out in our kids. So if we saw them doing something even at church, because our kids were PKs, they go up to somebody, they shake an individual's hand, they look them in the eye, and we always taught them how appropriate greeting, what that looks like. And we'd say, wow, I love it when you shook Mr. Dolan's hand and you looked him in the face and you smiled and you said hello. Grahams are leaders. That what you were being a leader in that moment. So thank you, because that is who we are. And so anytime you can speak into this is who we are, that creates this value that they want to live up to and arise to. Our two youngest, they were probably the most rivals, and it's a boy and a girl, and they would get into some fights and arguments that were pretty deep. And we would remind them, you're going to be best friends one day. And, I'm never going to be, we're never going to be best friends. In fact, when I graduate, I'm not having anything to do with, the other or whatever. And it's like, well, I know that that's what you think, but that's really not truth, and so I would just speak that over them. And today, those two are are the closest out of the four, as far as she will go to that brother before the other two brothers, asking for advice, asking for counsel, asking for input. And so it is true. And so you speak truth, what you want to see come to pass before it does. That's part of faith and living a faith journey is you speak it over your children, even though it's not there yet.
Yeah. And I love that you guys have passed to the season now where you're like, it is, like it has come to pass. That's beautiful.
I was thinking when I was with my older sister, she was a high schooler, and I was like in middle school, and I couldn't stand her. I was like, I can't live in this house with this woman, And I literally remember that. I can't wait till she leaves, and she's just one of my best friends now, So you really have to give them that picture that's beyond where they're presently at. Yeah. This question isn't, in what we talked about, but it's just popping into my mind because we've talked to a lot of parents whose kids are in crisis of some kind, where whether it's something that happened on social media or even kids that are suicidal or, struggling in life or
anxiety, depression.
Yeah. Like how did you guys learn to show up for your kids in crisis? Because I think a lot of parents don't know what to do. They don't know what to say. They don't know how to show up.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on how do you show up in those critical moments?
I think in the earlier, that just showcases the importance of the early years. Before any of that happens, it's like Joseph in the prosperous years. You're storing up grain. You're storing up grain. Those toddlers, those elementary age years where their decisions are not as consequential, you're pouring into those kids so that they have a tremendous amount of security in your love for them. And it's not based on how well they competed in a sport or even how good their grades are. We should compliment those achievements, but those are not the ultimate things to be complimenting our kids for. We want to compliment our kids for the decisions they make in terms of character, and really complimenting them for how they handle a loss would be even more important than complimenting on winning a championship. Yeah. Right. But when you seed into that in the early years and then in their teen years, they have a crisis, and there are multiple layers of crises that kids are dealing with today. You'll have a deep well in which to reach out to them and love them, and I would just say this: don't try to provide answers when they're not asking for answers, because what they need as an answer is just your assured presence that they always have dad, they always have mom having their back.
Yep.
And I think that's critically important.
Yeah.
It's being available to your kids. And too many parents want to fix their kid instead of sitting in the mess with their kid. And part of loving your kid unconditionally is sitting in the mess with them. When their life is a mess and it's hurting, you're present. You don't have to have all the answers. You have to love them where they're at. And sometimes it's just, what is the next step? Not the end step, just what's the next step? Let's help them get there. And, God will work out the end result. But let's just help them with the next step. Let's hear them out. Let's love them where they're at. Let's sit in the mess with them and be present instead of trying to fix them, solve them, bear down on them. Because we don't like what we see, that just pushes them away further. So the more present you can be is good.
What do you think is in us as parents that drives us when we want to fix them or fix it, or like what you just described? What do you think? I'm asking as a parent too, because I know I've had that moment or moments where it's like.
Parents are often insecure in their own identity. And that's what I have seen a lot is they don't know who they are fully in Christ, and therefore they can't really be secure in allowing their kid to even be wayward. I don't know if we'll talk about this, or maybe we will a little bit later, but one of our sons was arrested in high school, and one of the things I said to him is, I will love you no matter what. If you go to prison, I will love you in prison. I won't bail you out. I won't get you off the hook, but I will come to visit you because Christ died and gave his life for me. He loved me unconditionally, that I have eternal life with him in heaven. While I'm on this earth as your mother, I will love you unconditionally. I will walk with you through the journey. That doesn't mean I bail you out or release you, but I love you. That also means I don't care what anybody else thinks.
Right.
Well, how do you get to that point of not caring about what other people think? I mean, we were pastoring in a community, and a good portion of the town knew that our son was arrested. I mean, the whole high school knew, and then your whole neighborhood knows. And it was a spiritual battle mentally. And the reason I say is because Doug left for a 3-week missions trip the morning that happened. So I was a single parent for 3 weeks navigating through this journey. So I knew that was going to be a spiritual battle mentally, because Satan is going to attack you and tell you that, well, you should have done better in this area. You should have, you should have handled him differently in these areas. All this stuff crops up.
Right.
Well, then that really is, I'm more concerned about my image than I am about my son and where he is at in his character. I can't go there.
Wow.
Right.
I cannot go there. So I fought that with scripture. Quoting, I just took my Bible and wrote down a bunch of scripture, started just reading that out loud, quoting it. And then when those thoughts would come in, I would just go grab them and start reading it. Like, no, I'm going to fight this because it's not about me. It has nothing to do with me. It has everything about the enemy wanting to destroy my kid. And I'm going to fight this with Satan, and God's on my side. He's the all-powerful one. We're going to fight this. And it's not about me. It's about good winning out over evil.
Wow.
I love that.
Yeah, and I think, as parents, we want to solve problems, and we get very empathetic for our kids, and something unjust happens, or social media can be brutal, to our kids, and so we mama bear, papa bear, just rise up, and we want to make it right. And that's a good thing, to be a protector. But the idea of not short-circuiting the process of strength training that our kids get when they have to deal with things, and if we rescue them too quickly, too fast, it just eliminates some good strength training opportunity. We don't abandon them, but, over-fixing our kids' problems short circuits their development and growth.
Right.
How did you guys manage closeness with your kids? My kids look at me a certain way now in what connection. My 5-year-old looked at me. She goes, "Dad, will you tickle me?" She loves to be tickled.
I've never met a kid who enjoys being tickled as much as her.
Yeah, but it's very, they're pretty clear.
Yeah.
On like when they want connection, and what they're looking for. And then, we've not ventured into the middle school, high school. How do you maintain close connection with your kids? Young adulthood, your kids as adults. What have you learned in navigating those stages and maintaining closeness?
I think we're big proponents of love languages. The 5 love languages, identifying, and you can identify a child's love language pretty early in life.
Yeah.
And so if it's physical touch, lots of hugs,
If they're drawing you pictures and giving them to you all the time.
Yeah.
That's one of our kids.
Yeah. I mean, engaging in that and, pouring verbal communication. I guess the big picture is parenting is 7 days a week, 24/7. I try to challenge dads who I think sometimes compartmentalize their parenting, and they are into this quality time over quantity time. And I think there's a truth to that, but I think it's also a way to create an excuse for why they are always hunting on the weekend or always golfing both Saturday and Sunday. I grew up on the golf course, but when my kids it was the season of starting to raise our kids here in Bismarck and then in Wisconsin. I mean, I realized no, I gotta put the clubs away for a few years because they need my time and they need my dollars that, otherwise would go for these green fees.
Right.
And there was a good stretch of time where I didn't play golf until the boys were ready to be taught how to play golf.
Yeah.
But parenting is every day, all day, because training righteousness requires lots of repetition of instruction, correction, and that's part of the closeness, is just being engaged with them every day.
And I would say it gets harder as they get older. It's fairly easy because in the early years, you're physically caring for your child. So you're getting a lot of touch and a lot of interaction with your child. You have to feed them, to bathe them, to dress them, to, all of that. And then they start becoming more independent. And some parents kind of back away a little bit. And I think you have to be careful not to back away from your children because they are older and more independent. You still need to be present. And even in those middle schools, they probably need you more mentally and emotionally than they do any other time. And so don't walk away in their awkwardness, in their sassiness, because they're trying to figure out who they are. They're trying to figure out their identity. And those are kind of gnarly years, to be honest. They're hard. They're difficult for the child and they're difficult for the parent. And I think parents are like, who is this child? I don't really like them right now. And they pull away. That's probably the worst thing you can do is pull away from your child in those middle school years. But step up, step closer, even though it's not always fun. And you hug them and they don't smell nice. And they don't always have their hair combed the way you want. And they don't take care of their room the way you would like. And all those things, you got to look beyond that to see who's inside that human body and love them. And it takes intentionality, purpose, and it's work. It's just flat out work, but it is worth it because just a few years and they're out of your home.
Listen, the data on the young generations, Gen Y, Gen Z, the data is showing that the children today, the teens of today, still see that their number one hero in life is their parents.
Wow.
And the data is showing that when these kids are surveyed and interviewed around the world, that mom and dad are still the number one influencers in their life, even though behaviorally they don't give off that vibe.
Right.
And they're clinging to their friends and social media and all that. But we need to be encouraged by that data. And there's a book entitled "Hold On to Your Kids," not a Christian book, but a really great book with principles related to do not give up your kids to their peers. They're going to develop peer relationships, but we must understand that parents are the only ones that are going to love these kids unconditionally, and their peers aren't going to do it.
Right.
They wear something out of step with, fashion-wise on social media, they're going to get hammered by their friends. And so that's going to happen. But we need to just always know that even though they may not even realize it, they need us and they love us and they need us.
Would you say you guys used things like family rhythms to just kind of bake in connection and closeness, like family meals, or what did that look like for you guys?
Yeah, family dinner time is probably one of the most important things a family can do. And I hear all the excuses. Our family's busy, pulled in many directions. This child's going to this sport. This child's going to dance. And we're just running, here and there. And how can you have a family mealtime? Well, if you make it a priority, you can navigate that. And
you're choosing. You're ultimately choosing.
Yes, you're ultimately choosing that this is going to be important. Now, we didn't allow disruptions at the dinner table. That was a sacred time for us because it's a time to connect with our kids. So don't waste that connection. And there's plenty of research out there in the secular realm how positively dinner time affects your kids in all kinds of ways. They're a better student. They actually learn better just having dinner together as a family. That connection time is so important. So how we navigated that in the teen years when our kids were in sports and this and that, we had a regular dinner time. Whoever was there, we sat down together. The child that wasn't there, I just made up a plate of food, put some saran wrap over it, put it in the fridge, When that child got home, whatever time that was, either Doug or I would just sit at the dinner table with them while they ate so that they had some interaction, some connection. Is that a sacrifice? Absolutely. Do you turn off the TV? Yes. Do you stop reading the book? Yes. Do you, that is the sacrifice you make as a parent in that season. It is an interruption. It is a disruption to what you want to do as a parent. So again, this is selfless love in that you're going to love your kids even when it's not easy. So that was a way that we could still connect with our child and that they still not miss out even though they weren't there for dinner.
Right.
So.
Well, I love that's even a solution to people that would say, well, if we all can't be around the table, we can't do it. I just think that's a really beautiful solution.
I was talking to a group of guys, and we were, talking about this dynamic of you go to your 9 to 5, and one of them said, and I always just try to remember I have a 5 to 9 too, which is turning my attention towards my family. And for me, one of the things, and I get away from it at times, but what has really helped me is when I get home at 5 or whatever time it is, I've just realized when I bring my phone in, I carry work in with me, or I go down, I'm tired from the day and I go down this hole of social media, or you're just distracted. And so I've tried to start leaving my phone in my vehicle when I get home. Because then you just walk in the door and you come in different, and you're more present. And I think there's just little tweaks like that. And then at 7 o'clock or after dinner, if everybody's lounging, like go out to your truck and, get the phone. But just setting that mindset of, I'm faithful to my 9 to 5, but I also have a 5 to 9 that I need to show up for.
That's just a great way of framing that. As pastors, and this would go for any vocational, job that a parent has, but especially as pastors, we labor so hard in our role, whether it's the writing of the sermons and developing vision and all of that, to make a difference, eternal difference in the lives of people, and preach sermons that they'll never forget. And the sermon that people never have forgotten here at Evangel that I preached was never a sermon I preached on a Sunday, but it was the sermon of the marriage that we have and the sermon of our children and their lives, that the people that were here and still here, they ask about the kids.
Right.
They don't come up and say, you know what, I remember that one sermon you preached, and that doesn't happen. So when we think about how all the effort in the 9 to 5 in the ministry, which is good and important, you drive in, park your car, leave your phone like you're doing, because you're now going to be starting to work on the most important sermon, your connection maritally and pouring into those children that will continue your legacy.
Right.
Well, one of our mutual friends looked at me and he said, your son, when he turns 11, you're going to be the hero of his life. And you get to do that for about 2 years. I mean, where he's really like, my dad can fly if he wants to, And, And I thought, man, it's going so fast. He's halfway out of my house. Like, and there's some days I only see him 20 minutes. It's like, it's not, it has to be prioritized.
Well, I'll tell you that I know that I'm my kids' hero. They now tell me as adults.
That's awesome.
And contextually, they'll say, Dad, whenever I'm dealing with something in my, pastoral career, you're always in my head.
Wow.
So, again, another evidence that these little human beings that you are stewarding are going to carry your legacy so much stronger into the future.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I love that.
That just struck me, the difference between an adult who says, don't do what my dad would have done, and says, what would my dad do? Like just living in a way where they're asking that question the right way is really powerful. Well, we want to get into more. We're going to talk about the difference in raising boys and girls. We're going to talk about talking to our kids about sex, discipline, some other stuff like that. But that's it for this one. So we're going to land the plane. Thanks for joining us. If you believe this podcast will help somebody, share it, subscribe, and look forward to the one that's going to come out in a couple weeks.
Yeah.